I know that the Knicks won the game against the Cavaliers, but if I'm a Knicks fan and I'm watching that game, I'm thinking to myself, this is the same old, same old. We can go back to 2022 when in the month of February alone, they dropped leads of 18, 21, 28, and 23. Then we can fast forward to the next season when they blew it against the Miami Heat, had a couple of double-digit leads in that series, and couldn't get it done. And I think it's still fresh in everybody's minds what happened these last playoffs when they had double-digit leads, and especially the game where they were up by 14 with less than 3 minutes to go, and they ruined that. You know, I made mention of it back then when that happened, that Jalen is going to be on the hot seat. Okay, fine. You got yourself a new head coach. But I think Jalen gets one season to prove himself, and that's it. I know that a lot of people are going to feel like the pressure is on the coach, but I don't think so. And for me, if I'm a Knicks fan right now, the only thing that I find consistent is our inconsistency. And you could talk about big game Jalen at the end of it and all that. Look, in the playoffs, it was a completely different situation. Poor ball handling skills. He looked nervous, out of pocket, and out of place. 100%, every one of those guys on that team look back with a lot of regret, especially Jalen Brunson, I guarantee you. You know, at some point, the responsibility has to fall on your star. And he's the guy that they've invested everything in. They split with Randall. They said, look, we don't think that this is really on you, but we don't think it's not on you, and we're going to let you go. You get Karl Anthony Towns, and what has that really done for you at the end of the day? The Knicks are no better or no worse with anybody else. It's got to fall on Brunson's shoulders at some point. You have to expect the guy that you are paying the most money to earn his worth at some point. I get it. Again, they beat the Cavs, but they blew another lead, and they let Mitchell go off for 21 in the third quarter of that game. At some point, there has to be responsibility taken. I'm just saying. Moving on. So it was a big deal, obviously, the night before. Draymond Green getting his 132nd technical foul. And over the years, I've caught a lot of nonsense because I don't think, Draymond is as volatile as people say that he is. You know, I know that somebody's going to bring up the fist fight. Okay, fine. But those same people that bring up that fist fight will tell me that what Travis Kelce did in practice is amongst brethren. So we're not going to play the game where we go, well, that's in practice. No. No, Draymond Green has literally been told to go to therapy. Draymond Green has literally been told that you can't be back in the NBA until we think that you're ready, which, by the way, I'm 99% sure they probably contacted his therapist to find out whether or not they thought he could play ball in the NBA and not be temperamental. He's been through the ringer. Folks, I'm going to explain something to you. Of the top 10 all time who have gotten the most technical fouls in the NBA, he doesn't even come close. He's still 50 short of breaking the top 10 just to tie it with Kevin Garnett. And by the way, the most of all time is Karl Malone with well over 300. And if Draymond got the average amount of technicals for the next 6 years and played the exact amount of time that Karl Malone did in the league, he would still miss it by a wide margin. Dirk Nowitzki has more technical fouls than Draymond Green. Russell Westbrook has more technical fouls than Draymond Green. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Just because somebody has the aura or the stigma, a lot of times reality is louder than the fabrication. That's all I'm saying. Draymond's a bad boy. He don't want to play ball. Look what happened with Sabonis, please. Sabonis was faking of the fake. He was able to finish that game, and the checks S-ray came back as negative. Like, I need everybody to mellow out. It's not that deep. And so what? It was hoot and holler with the referees. And I've told people for years that if the Warriors really wanted Draymond Green gone, they would have done it. It's been blown out of proportion. And Draymond shared the post that I put up, which appreciate you, Brody. And I'm telling you right now, he was right. I just win a lot, so everything I see gets done. And he's right. The Golden State Warriors, because of who they are, they're going to be on national television a lot more. They're going to be on television more than others because they're going to get higher sponsorship deals with their increased viewership. Because they have Chef Curry. Because for a while they had the Splash Brothers. They were entertaining basketball and they were winning. And so every little thing that they did, whether it was good, bad, or everything in between, was literally magnified to the millionth degree. And let's not forget just how much more difficult it was back in the 90s and 80s to get a technical than it is now. You had to play some really dirty ball. What was it? Malone was 1. Barkley was 2. You know, Gary Payton was up there with like 4th. I'm just saying that the stigma's not real. People can label him a dirty player all they want to. It's just not factual. Draymond Green is a necessity. He's a phenomenal defensive player, an exceptional rebounder, and he is a great teammate whether anybody likes it or not. Again, case in point, if the Warriors wanted him gone, believe me when I tell you, it would have happened a long time ago. And speaking of being gone, transitioning to the NFL, look, I love Tua. And there was a time when Tua could play football. That time has passed. And it's passed for Mike McDaniel. Look, I was trying to tell people a season and 2 seasons ago, I get it, man. Everybody wants to sit down and have a beer with Mike. He seems funny, he's hip, he's cool, he's new. He's got all these great new offensive ideas. They're a lot of fun to watch. They're really entertaining. But then they would get to the playoffs. I mean, I've been so critical over Josh Allen over the years about getting the playoffs. And one of the games that I've been most critical of him about, I'm also just as critical of the Miami Dolphins because they forced all those turnovers and they still couldn't win the game. So at the end of the day, when all is said and done, you have to point the finger where it goes the most. And when McDaniel stating that he's going to go ahead and start this weekend, old Tua, and look, you can blame the concussions and say it's making Tua play scary football or, whatever the case is. It's just over, man. Tyreek Hill is hurt. Not that he was really doing anything anyway. Tua has not been playing fantastic. McDaniel's all out of steam. I mean, have you seen this guy's interviews? He literally looks like a 5th grader who's in trouble with his parents and he's trying to explain why he's in trouble. He's just, that's literally what it looks like. A kid who's in trouble with his mom and pop. And it's just like, this is what I did. And, when you're doing this and when you're doing, literally that's what, it's sad. It's actually sad to watch. It's depressing, as a matter of fact. I think right now, as an offensive coordinator, he could probably go to any team in the NFL and be successful. But as a head coach, he's just not there yet. And he's not there because of decision-making on and off the field. And he's not there because the team is clearly just not responding to him anymore. And at some point, again, you have to put the responsibility where it belongs. First and foremost, it is on the coach. After that, it's the quarterback. And I always say that teams become reflective of who coaches are eventually. They are becoming reflective of who Mike McDaniels is. And that's all there is to it. It's just time to go. Miami is just going to have to start all over again. It stinks. You don't want to do that. You finally were getting there, right? You were making headway. You were getting somewhere. You're a Miami Dolphins fan. You're watching this all happen. You're going, bro, come on, man. It's one bad season. It's not just about one bad season. It's about the inability to win truly big games, and it spills over to the playoffs, and now it's finally spilled over into this season. It's a wreck. It's a nightmare. Nobody wants to deal with this, and nobody's happy to be in Miami right now. And this is a point in the season where players start playing for themselves so that way they can still try and salvage decent contracts if they end up somewhere else. I mean, it's literally all you're going to see now. So it's literally going to turn into selfish football. And when you're not playing like a team and you have to be selfish like that and you got to look out for yourself, I mean, that's just going to cause more disruption and destruction. And you're going to have problems in that locker room, man. You've got to do the right thing and bench Tua for real if you want to salvage your job and you might be Daniel. But the fact that you've already said that he's going to start this weekend, I think just got you fired too. And speaking of getting fired, look, I haven't really had a whole lot of time to talk about this, and I'm not going to speak too much more into it because it's an ongoing thing. James Franklin deserved to be fired. I'm not saying I agree with it in the middle of October. I think that's a bad look for the university, and I maintain that and I stand by that. But I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't have done it in October, but I would have done it at the end of this season. He's had well over a decade, and I get it. Saquon can stand up for him all he wants to, and I understand where Saquon is coming from. That's his coach, and he's justified in what he's saying. He's not exactly wrong. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to win a championship. He wasn't the only hot seat going into this season. Coach Prime, believe it or not, is very much on a hot seat. And Lincoln Riley and LSU's head football coach, Brian Kelly, they're on hot seats too. You start out the season the way that you did a couple of years ago, you end up losing your last, 5 games in a row? You got a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback? I mean, what did Lincoln Riley ever really accomplish to get the contract that he did to begin with? And by the way, his buyout is somewhere in the neighborhood of $80 to $90 million. You're stuck. Same thing with LSU. That contract buyout is ridiculous. You're stuck. And it alludes to a bigger problem of promises from coaches that end up being empty. How long can you really give somebody to come through on what they say they're going to do? I've always been of the proponent that you never give a coach less than 4, but you also don't give him more than 7. I've been saying that for years. How long has Brian Kelly had between Cincinnati, Notre Dame, and LSU? He got blown out in the one championship game that he was in. It wasn't even close. Alabama dominated that game from beginning to end. Neither one of them have won a playoff game. They're a combined 0-5 between the two of them. They can't beat anybody with a winning record. Since Lincoln Riley went to USC, he's 3-10 against anybody in the top 25, and Brian Kelly's barely better. He's 5-10 against anybody in the top 25. It's a nightmare. And for Brian Kelly, that stat is really staggering because we're talking about teams that finished in the top 25. So again, I ask you, is he really worth his salt? I never really liked him after he did what he did in Cincinnati. I thought he could have finished out the season. Instead, he ran for higher ground for Notre Dame, left that team high and dry in November, got a $100 million contract for doing what exactly? Explain to me what LSU saw in Brian Kelly from the beginning to give him that kind of money. What did he do? Can anybody explain what he accomplished? If he had a playoff win at least, okay. He doesn't even have that under his belt. And don't forget, he had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in Jane Daniels. So I'm just saying that the game isn't always rigged in their favor. But, these coaches, to their credit, they force this, right? They create big contract buyouts. So that way, and it's the Charlie Weiss situation, right? Remember when he was at Notre Dame and they were literally paying him to not coach? It is that situation all over again, just magnified. These agents have gotten phenomenal at negotiating. And they have negotiated coaches like Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly and James Franklin into literally life. We're talking generational money, not life-changing money, generational money. Brian Kelly never has to coach another day in his life after that type of buyout. Neither does Franklin. Neither would Riley. None of them would have to work again a day in their life if they didn't want to. They have forced the hands of the universities. And the universities have expected somebody to come through. But the reality is they have overpromised and underdelivered. And I think it speaks to, hey man, we'll give you 5 years at, let's say, $10 million to really save ourselves some money, and then we'll go from there. And I know someone's going to go, well, man, look at what's going on with Cignetti in Indiana. And look, I'm not saying that I agree with that contract, but I will say this. He took a program that was non-existent for football and made it relevant. Now, I know what happened a season ago when they themselves struggled against really good football teams, right? So far this season, it's been different. Now, obviously, the Ohio State game is going to be very telling. But in the meantime, this is a program that is relevant now in football. Do I think they should have waited? Absolutely, I do. Especially on that type of money. I personally would have liked to have seen how the season ended, but they see what's going on with Penn State and all these other football programs, and they're going, look, we can't risk losing him. Somebody's going to pay him. So I think that they felt that their hand was forced before he went to Penn State and pulled out a lucrative deal. And then their program is right back to square one. And then all of a sudden it's the risk of, if Penn State is phenomenal with him there, then Penn State is not only justified in firing James Franklin, but Indiana would be trashed for letting him walk away. So again, their hand was somewhat forced. All right, everybody, I am Drew Duncan. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I am wherever you are listening to broadcast. Simply tell your device to play Drew Duncan Sports Show, The Smoke by Drew Duncan. I am wherever you are listening to broadcast. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Drew Duncan Radio, YouTube, Drew Duncan Radio, or The Real Drew Duncan, DRL Drew Duncan. Same with my TikTok. Everybody stay safe, take care of yourselves, and have a wonderful rest of your night and or day.